10, 15 years ago, if you were a girl gaming online, people were actually so nice to you. Like, so nice. They treated you so well. They would like gift you free stuff, all this stuff. Do you guys remember?
So Pokimane is getting clipped again, and people are already lining up to call her out and laugh at it. Yeah, again. You almost have to expect it at this point. Another take drops, and instantly the internet turns it into a whole moment. What did she even say this time? I'm starting to think she might be doing this on purpose, just to pull in attention, even if it's negative. She knows she has that loyal fan base backing her no matter what. But she also knows a lot of people outside that circle aren't exactly fans. So what's the move? Say something wild, something easy to clip, and let it spread like crazy.
I do feel though that there's been rage bait for so long that I'm like tired a little bit, like I'm numb. I actually don't get baited as much because everybody knows that there's rage bait. Do you get what I mean?
That's why it feels strange when she talks about rage baiting like it's something she doesn't do herself. Honestly, it's starting to feel like she's fully aware of what's going on, like this could all be one big joke and everyone watching is getting played hard. Or maybe she actually believes what she's saying, which might be the more realistic. An answer. And if that's true, then yeah, some of these takes just don't hold up. Take the claim about women being treated better in gaming 15 years ago.
Earlier today, I did this random little TikTok where I was talking about how, hear me out. Do you guys remember like 10, 15 years ago? I feel like 10, 15 years ago, if you were a girl gaming online, people were actually so nice to you. Like, so nice. They treated you so well. They would like gift you free stuff, all this stuff. Do you guys remember?
There's just no way that lands clean. It's tough to speak on her personal experience, sure, but using that to represent everyone, that's where it gets shaky. A little research into how things actually were back then would show a very different picture, and it makes the argument sound off. Now, to be fair, there is one part that has some truth. Back then, there were definitely moments where girl gamers got attention just for being girls in a male-dominated space. That part existed, no question, but that doesn't tell the whole story, and it definitely doesn't mean things were better overall. Seeing a woman in those old pre-game lobbies felt almost unreal, like spotting something super rare in the wild. It just didn't happen often, and when it did, people reacted in the most extreme ways possible. Back then, there were basically two very different reactions to a girl gamer showing up. On one side, you had players who would hear a woman speak, and instantly the chat would turn weird and hostile, throwing out the same tired, disrespectful lines like sandwich, kitchen, and worse. It got so common that people even made parody videos showing just how bad those lobbies could get. Then, on the complete opposite side, things got just as strange, but in a different way. Instead of disrespect, it flipped into over-the-top attention. A girl would join, speak once, and suddenly the whole lobby would act like something unbelievable just happened. Players would swarm, hype it up, and treat her less like a normal teammate and more like some untouchable celebrity. It wasn't real respect either. It was more like people convincing themselves they had a chance or some kind of connection, which made it just as awkward. To be fair, maybe Pokimane is thinking about specific types of communities when she says this. Maybe she's talking about MMOs or MOBAs, where the vibe could have been a little different compared to the chaos of first-person shooter lobbies. I haven't played much in those spaces myself, so I can't fully speak on how things were there back then. But from what I've seen, she didn't really clarify what exact communities she meant, and that lack of detail makes the whole point feel a bit unclear. From what I could gather from that Pokimane clip, she seemed to be talking about online gaming as a whole. But honestly, it comes off like her experience leaned more toward that side where girl gamers were overly praised for no real reason. And yeah, it's not hard to imagine why she might miss that kind of treatment. Being put on a pedestal like that can feel pretty good. It almost sounds like, I used to get all this attention and now it's not the same. There was definitely a weird hierarchy in those old game chats, no question. At the base level, you had regular players, just normal people, decent at the game, nothing too wild. But it was still very much a boys' club vibe back then, and if someone outside that norm joined, people acted like the whole dynamic suddenly changed. Then you had the sweats, the super intense players who treated every match like everything was on the line. They could be annoying, always going full try-hard mode, but at the same time, you kept them around because they could carry the entire team if things got rough. And let's be real, those players didn't disappear. They're still everywhere today. Right under that were the try-hards who talked big, but didn't have the skill to back it up. These were the ones constantly making excuses, blaming teammates, or throwing out claims like someone else was cheating instead of admitting they messed up. That energy hasn't changed much either. Then you had girl gamers, and this is where things got messy. Skill didn't matter. Personality didn't matter. People would instantly judge or react just based on the fact that a woman was in the lobby. You'd either get that awkward, overhyped treatment or straight-up disrespect, and neither one felt normal. And somehow, sitting at the very bottom, you had the squeakers, the younger players with high-pitched voices who got clowned non-stop. No matter what they did, they were always the easiest target in the lobby. It didn't even matter how good they were. People would still pile on them like it was part of the game itself. Women were even used sometimes as part of trolling moments, especially when younger players jumped into spaces they probably weren't ready for. It became this weird dynamic where some girl gamers would play along, flipping the situation to gain trust or respect from the lobby, which in turn boosted their standing above the usual targets like the younger players. It just shows how strange and layered those old lobbies could get. And yeah, younger players, especially the ones with high-pitched voices, had it rough no matter what. They were easy targets, constantly getting clowned the second they spoke. Some people joked that if your voice sounded older, you were safe from all that chaos, because once you got labeled as a squeaker, it was basically game over in those chats. I remember when shows like What Would You Do actually made segments about girl gamers around 10 years ago. That alone says a lot about how common the stigma was back then. It was seen as something unusual enough to turn into a whole social experiment.
You're at a video game store where you see a gamer being harassed simply because of her gender. Do you let the bullying play on, or do you step in and tell the boys?
Now though, if someone tried to make that same kind of segment today, most people would probably just laugh at how outdated it feels. That's pretty much what happened with those viral girl gamer skits online. The whole idea that women shouldn't even be playing games just comes off as ridiculous now, especially considering how much the gaming space has changed. Don't get it twisted. I'm not saying women don't still get targeted just for speaking in voice chat, because that definitely still happens today. Even Pokimane herself admitted there was misogyny back then, so that part isn't even up for debate.
I mean, don't get me wrong, there's always been some issues in relation to misogyny, but at one point it didn't feel so bad.
But trying to act like most girl gamers were treated better or with more respect in pre-game lobbies 15 years ago, that just doesn't line up with reality at all. Those gaming spaces weren't better. They were way more chaotic and hostile across the board. And honestly, it wasn't just women catching heat either. A lot of guys didn't even want to turn their mics on back then because the second you spoke, you were risking getting roasted into oblivion. It didn't matter who you were. Those lobbies were ruthless. It felt like every match turned into a competition of who could embarrass who first, with zero chill and zero respect. That was the culture, and women definitely had it worse in that environment. Now sure, those lobbies could be hilarious, and yeah, there's some nostalgia there, no doubt. But let's not rewrite history and pretend those were welcoming spaces for anyone, because they weren't. Saying a woman would join those lobbies and get treated better than today just doesn't make sense. That's why I went back to check the full clip, thinking maybe it was taken out of context. But nope, it wasn't.
You guys think we have regressed as a community? As, oh, where's the message? Kermi Kai said. Okay, maybe we haven't regressed. Thank you very, very, very much, Rizvi, for the gifted subs. What the hell? If you guys got one, please, please, please say thank you. That is so sweet.
And then there's that moment where she gets gifted a bunch of subs and says, oh wow, maybe we haven't regressed, which just raises more questions. So what is the real issue here? Is it about how people are treated now, or is it about not getting the same kind of attention or perks as before? Because if the experience back then was getting extra rewards or being put on a pedestal, then yeah, of course that's going to feel different today. But being treated more equally, even if that means more criticism too, that's not the same as things getting worse. At the end of the day, gaming spaces have changed a lot. And while they're not perfect now, acting like the past was better across the board just doesn't hold up. If you made it this far, drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and let me know in the comments what you think about Pokimane and this whole situation.